Premium quality football shirts at an extremely affordable price. Sound good? If so, check out the sponsor of today's video, jerseyfifa.com. You can see that I've sent you some shirts and they really are top quality, so make sure to click the link in the description to go find a shirt for yourself or perhaps as a gift for someone else. And you can now use code jerseyfifa at checkout for 10% off your order. That's code jerseyfifa at checkout for 10% off your order. I really do recommend their product, so go take a look. Now let's get into the analysis. So as I've mentioned on the channel a couple of times, Manchester United's pre-season has been going pretty well so far. We of course covered the impressive performance against Liverpool last week, and there has also been a victory against Melbourne since then. Since then, I'm sure the training will have gone to a higher intensity as we get closer and closer to the new season, and this increase in intensity led to a very sharp performance yesterday against Crystal Palace. So let's take a look at what happened. So the first thing I want to talk about is the starting 11, and in this game we saw De Gea, Malacia, Lindelof, Maguire at right centre back again, Diogo Dalot, Fred, McTominay, Rashford, Fernandes, Sancho, and once again Martial up front. So it was a similar starting 11 to the one that we saw last week, with a few tweaks in the defence. Now once again, the first thing that I want to look at is the shape that United used to try and get out of the press. And once again it was this sort of 2-3 shape, with Dalot really tucking inside from the right hand side, almost playing a midfield position. This is the shape that we can see here, but what's most interesting is that it is only these players trying to get out of the press. Everyone else is much higher up the pitch, and this means that Palace can't commit too many forward. United's play out of the press was impressive for large periods of the game, with the odd exception, but that's to be expected. Although United were massively helped by the fact that De Gea's passing was pretty accurate for pretty much the whole game. As a result of this, United found it pretty easy to progress the ball to the middle third, from where once again they continued with this 2-3 shape, with Fred playing as the pivot, whilst McTominay was given the freedom to push slightly further forward. Now I think most United fans have come to the conclusion by now that this holding position probably isn't Fred's best position. However, to be fair, I thought he had a pretty solid game and done a good job, and provided the base for United to build from. Now whilst he was a solo pivot, Fred certainly wasn't alone in these central areas, because as we saw in the Liverpool game last week, both of the fullbacks were both coming into really narrow areas, almost playing as two number 8s. Now this was the first game that we've seen Malacia from the start since his move earlier in the summer, and I thought that this game proved that he is the perfect natural fit for this position, and Shaw certainly has a battle on his hands this season. As for Dalot on the other side, I think right now his position in the team is far more assured, because once again he was absolutely brilliant, and this new narrower position really does seem to suit him and most of his biggest strengths as a player. Now another trend that continued from the previous game was the impressive movement of Martial up front, who once again regularly looked to drop away from the opposition centre backs into deeper areas to act as the link point for the attack. Once again I thought that Martial played this role pretty expertly, and right now he is looking the sharpest he has in about 2 years, and I think now it's about making sure he maintains the right mentality, because at the moment he's playing really well. Someone else that is doing reasonably well is Bruno Fernandes, and in this game he occasionally took up a slightly different position, as he would drop to the left hand side in an area where you might typically expect the fullback to be playing. Now as we know, Malacia was further tucked in, and this did create a nice little bit of space out wide, allowing Bruno to get the ball with a lot of time and space on the ball, from where he was then able to progress the play down the left hand side of the pitch. Another way that United progressed the ball down the left was actually through Harry Maguire, who regularly picked the ball up before playing a quick switch out towards Marcus Rashford, who was then able to quickly get at his man in the 1 versus 1 situation. Now this was probably the main way that Rashford was brought into the game in the middle third, but I thought as the game progressed Rashford really started to grow into the game, as he was constantly getting into good attacking positions in the final third. Down the right hand side of the pitch, United looked to progress the ball in a slightly different way, although once again it all started with the fact that Jadon Sancho was often looking to hold the width to really stretch the pitch and make it as big as possible. Once again, Sancho's performance from this wide position was extremely impressive, and he's another one of those players that looks incredibly sharp at the moment, and again I thought he was one of the best players on the pitch for Manchester United for pretty much the whole game. Now sometimes Sancho would then look to dribble, but there were also times when he looked for the pass, with either Dalot or McTominay making an underlapping run in the channel, allowing Sancho to slide the ball in behind the Palace defence. This is a pattern that I was talking about before Erik ten Hag was even appointed as manager, and already it looks quite dangerous, a move with Sancho receiving the ball out wide with runners off the ball. In this particular game it was either Dalot or McTominay making the run forward, and to be fair I thought that McTominay had a decent game. He didn't set the game alight, but he done a good job of keeping possession whilst providing an option for Sancho. Now that's the kind of shape that I want to talk about, but there is another pattern emerging, and that is when the team builds up the ball on one side before a quick switch to the other side, followed by an early cross towards the back post, and it looks quite dangerous. This is something we saw for the first goal, with Malacia switching the ball to the right before Dalot then crossed, and it's also a pattern we saw in the Liverpool game and also in some of the clips in training. Now this is actually a reasonably simple structure. You overload one side of the pitch which creates space elsewhere. After that it's about moving the ball with speed and precision. If you can get it right, it is incredibly hard to defend. Something else that is becoming clear is the constant width. Now this isn't necessarily a pattern of play but more of a philosophy of constantly making sure that the team has width, stretching the pitch as much as possible, whether it's the fullbacks or wingers. Now as I said there, it can be either. Sometimes it's the fullbacks and sometimes it's the wingers, and it's by no means a fixed position. There is constant fluidity. However, the focus is always width and exploitation of attacking space. There's also some trends developing out of possession as well, and one of them is that as soon as the ball is lost in the final third, the whole team quickly looks to swarm around the ball, in an attempt to win the ball back as quick as possible. Now this isn't something that this squad is really associated with. Several of the forwards have been labelled as lazy over the past 12 months. However, at the moment there is no sign of that laziness, with everyone helping the team from a defensive point of view. Now United are also looking to press when Palace are building in general possession, but the way they're doing it is quite interesting, because the two wingers are often coming quite narrow, whilst we'll then sometimes see the fullbacks squeezing really high up the pitch. Now this pressing shape with the fullbacks matching up with the opposition fullbacks is extremely rare in football, with Liverpool probably the only elite team that are doing it right now, so it's going to be interesting to see whether or not United can pull it off. If United are to pull such a pressing shape off, then the centre backs are going to have to be switched on and actually quite aggressive with the way that they play, and even when the press isn't as intense, Ten Hag will still demand this aggressive nature. This is something that we saw in their match yesterday, and I thought that Harry Maguire performed the role brilliantly, as he was regularly strong into the tackle any time that Palace tried to play the ball into feet. Now until the season starts and perhaps beyond that, there will be discussions over Maguire starting. However, personally I thought he put in a very strong performance, and he made all the fans booing early on look like absolute idiots. Now unfortunately the fans booing was the downside of the game, but there was no such disappointment on the pitch, as United produced a really sharp display of possession play and incisive attacking football, and personally I was quite impressed, but let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.